everybody. Allyson Blythe, certified life coach and licensed clinical social worker. So today we get the privilege of doing a little bit of role reversal. I want to welcome my friend and my editor, Elena Rarig. Welcome, Elena.
Hello, thanks for having me. This is definitely a reversal.
I know, I was like, ooh, what can we do? So, this has been quite a trek. You and I met, I think, in December, maybe November of 2019. And then we kind of spent all of 2020 in the process of writing Misunderstood, going back and forth. And with that, really starting this relationship and friendship, not just personally, but also professionally. And it's been really kind of fun. And you've sometimes called me to share some of your connection with the material of Misunderstood. So it's been exciting for us to walk through that together. And now it's kind of an opportunity to share with others about your experience with Misunderstood. So thank you for that.
You are very welcome. I'm happy to be here and contribute to the success of your book and you as a person.
Yeah, thank you. So just to start, as an editor, you certainly have read an awful lot of material. I'm sure a lot of things come across your path. And I think you even shared with me a story about when you were little. Didn't your parents pay you to read and that kind of stuff?
They did. They started about the age of 12. I remember my dad gave me my first business book and I knew nothing, talking about LLCs and everything to do with business. And I'm like, I'm 12 and I don't even know what this stuff means. And he said, just read it. Eventually it'll all click. And from there on, I spent the rest of my teen years getting paid, depending on the size of the book, 25 to 50 bucks per book that I read. And I did have to write a report and highlight things in it that stuck out for me. So my parents knew that I read it. And I have read a ton of books. That's my love for books and why I now own a publishing company. So.
Fantastic. Well, they certainly planted some powerful seeds inside of you. That's awesome. And you were actually generous enough to write the foreword of my book. And you referred to it as a breath of fresh air. And over time, you talked about being able to apply some of the concepts. What was it about Misunderstood that really set it apart from other books that you've read?
Well, every book that comes to us, usually the book is done where yours wasn't done, but you did have a good start. And your book was like most that we get, where it's just a little bit, I don't want to say scatterbrained because your book was not, but we do get a lot that are scatterbrained or they're not strategically written. In other words, it's like this chapter, someone wants to write about this topic. And so they just sit down and write, but it doesn't really flow well. And a lot of times people who are entrepreneurs or wanting to become an author, a self-published author, everybody sounds good in their own head. So when they write, they're just like, oh, it sounds good. And I'm going to save some money and I'm just going to publish it myself. And it's really not a good book, especially when you're using it as a lead generator to get clients for coaching or for your business. A lot of those books really do a lot of damage because nobody gets past the book. So they're not going to hire the person. And when I got your manuscript and saw the content of it and worked with you and you were really teachable and we just went back and forth creating this masterpiece of a book, it was a breath of fresh air because it is strategically written. And when something's strategically written, and what I mean by that is there's sequential order, you might have 20 different chapters, but they need to go in a certain order and they need to give the reader something that they can immediately apply. Because another thing I see with books is, say I was going to write a chapter on be happy. The writer might say, you need to be happy and these are all the reasons why and your life will be great. But the reader sits there and goes, but I don't know how. And that is another reason yours is a breath of fresh air, is because you give the how-to. And if the how-to in the book isn't enough, you have the program to back it up for them to take that next step further. Another reason breath of fresh air is there's videos with QR codes right inside the book. There's written exercises. So again, people can immediately apply what they read after that chapter. And that's why it's a breath of fresh air, because you took the time, you invested in yourself and your company and your book, and you really created a masterpiece.
Thank you. And certainly with your help, I appreciate that, because I remember so many times. It's interesting because the process of Misunderstood actually started with a live coaching course. I started it as an in-person course where people came in to learn about commodities, boundaries, and decision making. And I called it CBD. And the material was so rich and so fascinating. And I remember submitting to you, I think maybe like an 18 or 22 page document. I'm like, this is my book. And from there, all of this stuff, when I talk about this has been like this birthing process, that's an exact example of kind of what I'm referring to, is that there's just been so much material that's been added to this, all the way, like you referred to, all the way to this online course that's now available. So yeah, very, very cool. You have also kind of talked so much about different ways that this is applied to you, both personally and professionally. What's one of your favorite parts, or what's something that's really stuck out to you?
Well, Allyson, you're absolutely right. Your book is the first one that I published and was a part of the editing process, where I was completing the exercises when I was done editing the book, because it was so, like, every chapter just offers so much and really makes you self-reflect, and you want to apply it. You want a self-discovery at the end and say, how can I get better? So I love that. But I can't really say my favorite part, but I will say a part that I will take with me till the day I die. That one line, and I cracked up laughing because it was really at the beginning. I think it's one of the opening lines, but it says, "I lost my shit over a banana." And that is so important to the readers, because if they go to your website, I'll give you a little plug, AllysonBlythe.com. If they go to your website, you are this professional. You're a licensed clinical social worker. Did I say your title correct?
Yes.
So those are like really high credentials, and someone in your position, somebody like me, goes, oh, they're perfect. They know how to do everything, and they have life figured out, and they never have drama. They never have chaos. So when you opened your book with, "I lost my shit over a banana," I'm like, whoa, even she loses it sometimes. Mm-hmm. So right off the bat, it was relatable. And then it helped me not to feel so crazy that, okay, sometimes I've lost my shit over something very small too. And, so that was one that really is going to go with me forever. Just knowing that we are a lot of like, no matter our positions in the world. So,
yeah, so incredibly true. Yeah. I can't help but be authentic in what I offer, whether it's a situation like this or in my writing or my work with clients. And so it is important to kind of realize we might all see the masks that each other wears. And in the idea of transparency in this book, that you can kind of see my journey and my misconception about things like kindness, and how I had really misunderstood that for so many years, and how it brought me to that point of losing my shit over a banana. And yes, that absolutely is a very true story. So I do talk a lot about those. There's so much that's covered in there. We talk about kindness, and I refer to boundaries, and then there's all of these checklists, and then that inevitable process of sense of self toolbox. Can you share a little bit about how maybe your concepts have changed, or your ideas about any of those have developed over the course of reading this?
Absolutely. And again, you are right. There is a lot of content in your book. I think each chapter could become its own book and just keep expanding. I know that'd be a lot of work. But I think what hit home for me was the boundaries. And I've always been a strong personality. I use my voice, I stand up for myself. However, with certain people, I realized the boundaries just don't exist for those people. Mm-hmm. And I remember you and I had this conversation after I read that chapter, and I wanted to talk to you about boundaries. So we kind of got away from the book a little bit on more of a personal level. And you're like, that's great, but what are the consequences? I'm like, oh, I have to add consequences to those boundaries, mm-hmm. And knowing me as a parent, I have 4 children. I am the worst with that. I am like the threat. I threaten, but I'm terrible at following through. Like, you're grounded for a week. And then 2 days later, can I go to the movies? Sure, here's some money. And I'm like, oh, shoot, they were grounded. So it's looking at that kind of stuff and really sticking to the consequences. And the other thing is I feel a lot of guilt, or what you talk about being an empath. So when I have to dish out a consequence, then I feel bad for the person who has to live with those consequences. And that's one reason I tend to backtrack. And just going through your book, one of the main things that changed in my life is setting the boundaries, setting the consequence, and how they feel about that consequence is not my problem. They shouldn't have crossed the boundary. And it's just made a world of difference in my life over the last year. Now, I will say I wasn't perfect at applying it all the time right at first, but every day I get a little better. And with every failure, I remember what Allyson says about that.
Yeah. And I think boundaries are such a process, right? And in some people it's different and it's easier with in some situations. So it's always a learning process. I can't say, even as much as I've been doing this, I can't say that I land that sweet spot every single time. I refer to watering down words and weapon words, and I still find myself sometimes doing that swing. So yeah, it's such an incredible process just to kind of keep walking that journey. You've talked now about being stronger in your consequences and being more clear. Is that one of the specific ways you feel like you've applied? Any other ways that you've applied any of what you've learned?
I really am focusing too on being an empath because I've always known that I felt this way, and I could feel like my dog. Okay, let's just use my dog as an example, because an empath can even feel the dog's pain. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Totally true.
And
Yeah.
I never heard the word empath. I didn't know that this existed. I didn't know other people were like me. I didn't know there was a label for me in this realm. But I have a little chihuahua, and they're seriously supposed to live in Mexico because it is freezing in Ohio and these dogs have no fur, right? So he's always cold and he's always shaking. And when he sits on my lap, if he starts shaking, my insides literally start shaking. Like I feel his like pain of being cold, or maybe I think he has anxiety too because of where he used to live, or whatever life he had. But I feel it even with my dog. And that goes back to consequences then, I feel their pain, and being aware of that and keeping it under control is just awareness of these things that I wasn't aware of before, that just drove me crazy, and I just walk through life blindly without not being in control. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a powerful point, is to be able to understand that being an empath in this world is one of the most beautiful ways that someone can be equipped. And yet, when not understood, when not regulated and protected, when overused in some ways, it's very dangerous and it's very depleting. And so understanding your gifts as an empath and using them so much more deliberately, tied in with those commodities, time, energy, and effort, man, it keeps you so empowered in kind of what you're doing and how you're relating in the world. So yeah, not only kind of the idea of following through with consequences and sticking with those boundaries, but really your essence as an empath. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Anything else that you would say? Any reasons why you would suggest to someone read Misunderstood?
To take control back of your life is the number one, because we walk through life and we have to make decisions all day, every day. And we'll make decisions based on habits. Like if my kids say, can I go to the movie? My habit is to say yes. And we actually created like anything. I'm the yes mom. Okay. I say yes to everything unless it's really not good for them. Like, no, you cannot have pop at 9:00 at night. Those are my no's, but typically I'm yes to everything. Whether we're shopping, can I buy that? Sure. Yes. Like it's just like crazy. And just being aware, because that's a habit. We actually made a rule in my house for a month. I was not allowed to say yes to anything, So even if they're like, Mom, I'm starving, can I eat? No, I was never allowed to say the word yes. So if they wanted anything, they had to ask their dad. And then they realized how nice I really am, because dad is the no guy. So it really, just doing that, just being aware of all my yeses really upset me. I'm saying yes because I want everyone else to be happy, but those yeses hurt my finances, hurt my mental state, my energy, my time, energy, effort. Even with clients or friends who say, hey, I don't know how to do this. My response is, no problem, I'll just do it, because it's easier, it's quicker for me to do it than try to teach them how to do it. But then what I do is then I train them to come back to me, and Elena will do anything. And I just have to say, I don't know how, and she'll just do it. I didn't teach them how to fish all the time. So just being aware of my natural habit of being a yes woman. Now I stop because of time, energy, and effort in your book. I stop and I say, how much time will this take me? How much energy will it take me? How will it affect my family? How will it affect my relationship with my husband, with my kids? And you know what? I've become more of a, well, let me point you to somebody else who might be able to help you, or let me just send you a link with instructions on how to do it, something quicker. So I find other ways to help them than doing it myself and spending all that time. And I've learned I'm going to start, I started charging people for this stuff, because before it was just so many favors. And then I found I was getting burnt out on work. I started to resent people who were too needy, and so just really, this book will make you aware of so many areas that we self-destruct. I have nobody to blame for any of this but myself, because I'm the yes woman. And if I tell you yes, of course you're gonna be like, great, like, who's gonna say, I know you really want to help me, but I don't want you to help me,
I'm good. No help. Yeah.
Mom, I know you're going to buy me those jeans from the Buckle and they're really expensive, but no, that's okay. You don't have to. They're going to say, yes, buy me those jeans, So just awareness of how I self-destruct is priceless.
You're talking about two of the SOS tools, and I absolutely love it. One of self-awareness, and I think that's the theme that everyone pulls from this book, is being able to tune in. It's a different frame of reference when you start to understand the value of these commodities and your boundaries and all of that kind of stuff. But you're also talking about self-responsibility. It's really easy to blame. Well, they shouldn't have asked me, or they shouldn't bother me. Taking responsibility also keeps you in the driver's seat, so that you don't have people to blame. Really taking responsibility for your yes and for your no. And I have to say, I've watched that transformation from you. I've seen a shift, and the ease I used to experience, kind of like with this idea of like, yeah, you'll handle it and you do it. And then this new boundary that I've witnessed you being able to do. I've received the links, right? All of those different kinds of things where you're trying to hand the responsibility back to the people where it actually belongs. Good for you. It's been a cool transformation.
Thank you. I will say, at first I would say, no, I'm not going to do it. I found myself, I had so much time, and I was like, now I don't know what to do with my time. So I found a really cool series on Prime.
Right.
So I've never really watched TV, because I was always working or tending to the kids or the husband. So it's really neat to find this time. And before, I used to get up around 6 o'clock and get my coffee, and I always watch the news in the morning, and not mainstream. I have to put that out there, but that's my own thing. But by 7 o'clock, I was on my computer and I would work till 5. And I took a potty break, or I would eat while I was working. Like, I just worked. And now my new life, it's like I get up now I'm getting up about 7. I've learned to sleep in a little bit, and I hit the treadmill and hit the weights. And then I go and shower and I get on with my day. And I'm usually not sitting down at my computer till almost 10 o'clock, which is great, and I'm still quitting at my normal time, but I have time now because I'm not doing free favors for everyone. So I'm finally being able, so the bigger picture, the end result is self-care. And that's really important. I feel better than I've ever felt, because you know me, I struggle with depression. So I feel great. And it's just been, it's life-changing. Your book, your material is definitely life-changing.
Thank you, Elena. Yeah. You know that I appreciate you, and certainly all of your effort and just who you are. So thank you in this process. Anything else you want to share?
Well, I have notes. I just wanted to say, when I think of you, I think I'm like, from depressed to success in my personal life. Yes, that is the tagline for AllysonBlythe.com and her book, Misunderstood. And I'm talking personal life, because we know I've always had the success in business, but my personal life was struggling. And the one thing I say as a businesswoman, when your business suffers, your personal life will suffer. When your personal life will suffer, your business will suffer. And My business, I had the best year in business that I've ever had. I hit my 6 figures. I was super excited for, right? But my personal life, I was so depressed. So my tagline for you is from depressed to success.
I love it.
That's it. That was my closing on my notes.
That's really good. All righty, my dear. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And I'm going to give you another plug because I can't help myself. So you are developing this program with these P's, and I think there's 12 or 13. I lose count. But I got to be the test dummy for that program. And again, super freaking life-changing. I thought, well, I'm already like doing so great. But then I realized more awareness. Hello. It's like the V8 moment, smacked in the head. So everybody stay tuned for that because it's so good. It is so good. All right. That's it, Allyson. I had to tell people what's coming.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.